Baizhu is finally out, and this is an honest look at how he works with different teams and weapons at Constellation Zero. So here's exactly what you need to know about him in this showcase video. I gotta say, I didn't expect much from Baizhu. I knew he was going to be at least decent since he's from Dendro, and that element is kind of broken right now. However, after testing him out on the media server, I actually got surprised by quite a few things. So first of all, we're going to be looking at level 90 Baizhu, who is using Deepwood Forset with full HP main stats, which I'll explain later why, and he is also equipped with free-to-play 4-star prototype Amber. Also, all of his talents are level 9, and of course, he is Constellation Zero. Now, the first thing you'll notice is how much his elemental skill heals for. He shoots out a small missile that will damage up to 3 times, jumping between multiple targets if there are any. When the missile comes back, you can see here, everyone in the party gets healed for nearly 8,400. That's pretty insane if you ask me, and one hell of a bubble pop from Clamset if he is equipped with it. Now, the skill has standard ICD, so on one target it can trigger 1 reaction, while if it jumps between enemies, each enemy is afflicted with reaction. And as you can see, Baizhu generates only 3 particles from the skill, and once we get to his team's showcase, I'll tell you why this is going to be a bit of a problem. Still, what I like about the skill is that it seeks the targets pretty well, even from afar, and if you do miss with it, it still comes back and heals everyone. Now, moving over to his burst, when you cast it, Baizhu generates a shield that refreshes every 2.5 seconds, and each time it refreshes or gets destroyed, it shoots out a missile at one target, and also heals the active character. And with this build, it's a little over 5,400, which is nice. Now, you might be thinking, finally, a Dendro shielder I can use. Well, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but the shield barely absorbs any damage, even at talent level 9 and a full HP build. I mean, just look at this Hilichurl shooting 1 arrow and piercing the shield with leftover damage. It's not even enough to absorb 1000 damage. However, here's the tricky part. Shields in Genshin actually provide infinite resistance to interruption, even if they become broken. For example, this massive Primo Visha would normally knock back with the damage. However, even if Baizhu's shield gets broken and the character gets damaged, they still resist from getting interrupted. So yeah, basically this shield here is just for the sake of resistance to interruption. Now, a total of 6 shields will be generated, so in other words, 6 times someone who is on the field can resist knockback, and 6 times a missile will be shot. There is no ICD on it, which is normal since it happens every 2.5 seconds. However, what I don't like is the fact this missile is single target and doesn't have any AoE to it. I mean, okay, if the enemies are cuddling each other so close it's uncomfortable, sure, then they both get hit by the same missile, but is this something you can expect to happen a lot? Not really. And also, the shield needs to be broken or refreshed for the healing and damage to happen. So for the first shield, if nobody breaks it, it basically just sits there and doing nothing. Now, one of Baizhu's passives are really interesting. For each 1000 HP he has, after an active character gets healed by the burst, they get a buff for 6 seconds that improves both bloom and quicken reaction damage. At first, when I saw the numbers, I thought they were insane. My Baizhu is basically capped out here since 50k is the stopping point, and that would mean 100% stronger blooms and 40% deadlier quicken reactions, right? Well, the numbers are actually additive, meaning they don't multiply the damage. So in this case, if normally I can push for 31,000 hyperbloom damage, with Baizhu's passive active, it becomes nearly 36,000. That's about 15% damage increase overall, and actually, I think it's really nice for what it's worth. I kinda think of it like Nahida's passive that gives up to 250 EM, except here you need to stay with the character on field and get healed by Baizhu's burst. And when it comes to improved quicken or spread damage, our good boy Cyno here deals about 6 to 8% more damage from each activated hit compared to his regular reaction damage, and again, I like it. It's a really nice buff to have. But as I mentioned, you only get this buff if the character's on field, which can be a bit of a bummer since Cookie, Toma, and EM Raiden are usually off field. However, the buff does linger for full 6 seconds, even when you switch out the character, so you can catch the heal, get the buff, and switch out. Now, the other passive depends on the active character's health. It doesn't have to be Baizhu only. If they are below 50%, Baizhu gains 20% healing bonus, which is pretty big with all things considered. However, if they are above 50%, then Baizhu gains extra 25% Dendro damage bonus. Besides improved healing, I don't think this passive matters much, because truth be told, Baizhu's damage kinda sucks. Like, obviously, with full HP build, he will hit like a noodle, but I did equip him with a 5-star weapon, damage dealer set, gave Deepwood to Raiden, and Kokomi was there to boost with Thrilling Tales, and even then, it took him nearly twice as much time as Cyno to reduce the same amount of health on this Drake boss. Don't get me wrong, he can still deal decent amount of damage, and you can use him in Hyperbloom teams as Dendro driver, but still, I think there's a reason why his multipliers are so low compared to his healing, and let's not forget that nice passive for Dendro reactions. Overall, Baizhu acts as the same way as he does from the story. He is a healer, who also brings an interesting buff to reaction damage and can apply Dendro. But how well does this work when he is on a team? Just like in every other showcase video, keep an eye on the bottom of the screen to see what loadout Baizhu's using. Now, the first team I really wanted to try out was Cyno Quickbloom. The biggest problem with this guy is that Hoyoverse decided, nah, let's not give him resistance to interruption when he's using his burst, let the guy get knocked around. But with Chad Baizhu, this is no longer a problem, and even better, I felt quite invincible thanks to Baizhu's insane healing. Now, as I said before, even if the shield is paper thin, it's enough to prevent enemies from interrupting Cyno, and also with this full HP build, Baizhu increases both Cyno's aggravate and hyperbloom damage. The hyperbloom damage ranges here from 15 to 26k, and Cyno has about 470 elemental mastery with Gilded Dreams set, so he gains a nice chunk of increased damage for both reactions. The problem I ran into when using this team was that both Cyno and Baizhu are really energy hungry. While the first two rotations went smoothly, starting with the third one, both of them when I switched would still not have their burst ready to go. Now Baizhu here has about 170% ER, and Prototype Amber also refunds 18 energy, so he needs 62 more, and it's extremely crucial he catches his own particles because there's only 3 of them, and he needs all of it. Still, using Fischl to generate more energy from Electro Resonance and her skill did end up sorting things out for Cyno, but the team variation I went for afterwards felt way smoother. Nahida instead of Fischl now provides particles for Baizhu, and also fixes one other problem. The Good Doctor is literally only good for single target Dendro application, so if there are multiple enemies around, Cyno's white attacks often end up only causing aggravate damage to 1 or 2 of them, since Baizhu's burst is kinda unpredictable and could shoot all times at the same target who is already quickened. Also, you might have noticed, Baizhu here is using Favonius Codex. Well, the extra particles help with Cyno's energy problems, and it's a really nice alternative to Prototype Amber, although it does mean you lose out on better healing and passive buff, but in exchange, everyone feels happier with more energy at their disposal. Now, the other team I really enjoyed using was Quicken. With more of the same elements in the party, it's easier to upkeep the bursts off cooldown, and while Baizhu's damage is small, it still contributes to the team's overall performance. Also, if you use another Dendro unit like Alhaitham or Nahida, they can apply Dendro in AoE better, so you don't have to just rely on Baizhu alone. Oh, and I tried using Clamshot on him since his skill heals for so much, and even though the first bubble pops for a lot of damage, it quickly falls off heavily because the burst is super slow with healing, even if it's good. So honestly, you're better off with Deepwood set anyway, which applies for basically almost any team you build with him. I also tried out a Hyperbloom team as DPS Baizhu. It's definitely not as good as Alhaitham or Nahida or even Kaveh, but you can still use him as a driver pretty well. I noticed his skill has bigger impact in this team, as it really matters if it jumps between enemies and applies Dendro. But one funny thing I noticed, and I thought I was crazy at first, was that Baizhu's normal attacks are extremely short. Like, literally, you almost need to stand face to face against the enemy to hit them. Nobody told me he's a martial arts expert like Heizo, except this guy has even worse coverage than the detective. At least, that's how I felt. Good thing his charge attack is decent, but then again, you are giving up stamina for the hit. But you might be asking, what about Burgeon, Mr. Gacha Gamer? Just don't, okay? The guy is basically a single target Dendro applicator, and you desperately needed to be AoE to maintain Burgeon efficiently. Finally, I also ran him in a Nilo Bloom team. It's okay, I kinda think Yao Yao is better for the job here, since she applies Dendro to more enemies than Baizhu, but you can still use him here. I didn't really notice anything special about it, other than the fact he can be a healer for them. I mean, it does work at the end of the day. So what do I think about this small business owner of Boo Boo Pharmacy? I actually like him a lot, despite the fact I kept complaining about his single target Dendro application. I can kinda see why Hoyoverse went with it, because if he could apply Dendro insanely well, in addition to healing and semi-shielding as well as buffing Dendro reaction damage, well then he would be the Archon here. And I do think that he performs best when in a party with another Dendro unit, since his particle generation is lackluster and he needs a lot of energy. Still, I think the character who benefits the most from him at the time of making this video is definitely Cyno, but running Baizhu and Hyperbloom and Quicken teams also feels really nice. So overall, while he has some drawbacks, if you need a strong healer with an interesting shield mechanic and a great passive to boost damage, even if it is kinda only for the active character, he is a pretty good pull. Despite the fact Candace is on his banner, both Kaveh and Fischl are there, so a new unit and also a really good Quicken teammate are there waiting for you if you pull for Baizhu. But what about his signature weapon? I haven't showcased it at all. Well, the truth is, Prototype Amber basically achieves almost the same results, and it doesn't cost you a couple of $100. I mean, I might as well delete it when I have Amber by my side. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm a huge fan of Baizhu. I am so happy he is finally here, and I think he is a super solid Dendro healer. It's easy to build him, 2 of his best weapons are 4 stars, and you can even build him as a DPS if you want to. I mean, no one's stopping you from doing this. In fact, I might make a video in the future about DPS Baizhu just to see how to build him properly. But other than that, I will be using him as my go-to Dendro healer for Cyno Cyno, and a few other teams. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I'd appreciate if you could leave a like and a comment to help with the YouTube's algorithm. I hope you have a great day, and see you next time.